back to another episode of Homebrewers Alley here at the Crosshatch Home Brewery. So what do we have going on here today? This is another update on the Witbier with the peaches and lavender that we put in the secondary almost 2 weeks ago. It's actually been in secondary for 12 days and a little bit longer than I originally planned, but with putting that peach puree in there, I ended up getting some more fermentation going on. And that's pretty standard when you add fruit to secondary, or even when you add fruit sometime to primary. You're going to get some more fermentation from the sugars in the fruit. And since I'm bottling this, you want to make sure that your fermentation is complete before you bottle it. You don't want bottle bombs, which happens if your fermentation process is not done. CO2 starts building up as it continues to ferment in your bottle. Boom. Can be dangerous, so make sure you have your fermentation complete. I always would say give your fermentation at least 2 weeks before bottling. If you're going into secondary after 2 weeks, then give it at least another week, week and a half, if not more. It will be fine. So anyway, it was in primary for 2 weeks. Yeah, primary for 2 weeks, and then in secondary for 10 days. A couple notes about the lavender and peach puree. You saw I just put in a can of peach puree. Nothing to really comment on there. With the lavender though, I only put 2 tablespoons. Lavender a little bit goes a long way, and I have not used lavender before when brewing, and so I did not want to end up having too much in there, because I have had a Witbier with lavender that was excellent. Awesome amount of lavender, nice flavor, nice nose, nice everything. And then I had lavender from the same person a couple years later. Too much lavender was added, and it tasted like you were drinking, I don't know, potpourri or some soap. Lavender can get very soapy. Also, make sure that you use culinary lavender. If you use the, I don't know what you call it, I guess the non-culinary lavender, that has a higher camphor, I think it's called. In it has higher camphor, and that can basically give you the flavor of Vicks Vapor Rub, which I'm going to say is probably not what you're going for your beer. So make sure you get culinary lavender. I got mine from My Spice Sage. They deal in myspicesage.com. Just a website I came across, and they deal with a lot of different, look to me like high-end spices. I don't know, but it was $10 for a big old bag of lavender that'll last me forever. So anyway, I only put 2 tablespoons in each of the 5 gallons. Now I have, today I've transferred this into the bottling bucket. And another quick note on the bottling is that in my previous bottling episode, you saw me add the sugar or simple syrup mixture after I added the beer. After some comments from some of the viewers, I added the sugar first because I think I would agree with you guys that it gives it helps better incorporate it when you're bottling. If you start with the sugar on the bottom, rack the beer on top of it in your bottling bucket, it kind of gets a swirl motion going as you're adding, transferring the beer in there, and I think it helps incorporate it more and gives you a more even carbonation for your bottles. Now, on to carbonation. Some of you have emailed me or asked me questions in regards to how much sugar to use. Well, that's an excellent question, because I don't think that there is a tried and true method that I've found for home brewing in regards to exactly how much sugar you should use. There are different calculators online where you take the temperature of your beer, you put in the total amount of gallons that you're using. It will tell you based on how much carbonation is required for the particular style that you're brewing, based on the BJCP guidelines, how much sugar you should add. However, here's where the problem comes in. I did a test this past week, and I went to 6 or 7 at least different websites that offered a CO2 calculator for adding sugar to your beer. All of them were helpful. They'll tell you how much to add, whether you're adding corn sugar or honey or table sugar or molasses, or using a DME mixture or LME mixture, or whatever it is that you're choosing to use for carbonation. Pretty much every calculator online will tell you what you should use based on the style beer that you're going for. However, for a wit beer, I did 6 different sites. Every single site told me a different amount, and it ranged. It wasn't like, you know, off by 0.0 something or other. It was off between, there was differences between like one recommended 4.5 ounces all the way up to 7.5 ounces. That can be a huge difference when you're coming to carbonation on whether you're going to get, you know, it start foaming over or whatever it is. So I decided to ignore all of the CO2 carbonation calculators and go with the method I've always gone for, which I take a temperature reading, I take a gravity reading, and then based on those, as long as my temperature is around between 68 and 70 degrees and my gravity, final gravity is 0.010 or lower, I add 5 ounces per 5 gallons of priming sugar, the normal corn sugar that it is that you can get at your local homebrew shop. So that's what I did here. 5 ounces of priming sugar to the 5-gallon batch that I'm getting ready to bottle. So hopefully all will come out well. My ending gravity, I'm trying to find my little glass I had here somewhere. Here we go. I used the thief, and I took a reading. I pulled the beer up into the thief first, and I took a gravity reading in there. It's too much of a pain to try to video that, so I didn't. I'm sorry I don't have that on there to show you that kind of detail. Anyway, in the thief, it showed to be about 1.08 to 1.010, somewhere right in there. But basically, it's even dropped down a little bit further than we took the reading the original time at the 1.010. So now I think we're down to about 0.08. Anyway, this is what it looks like coming out. Hey, Star Hill. This is what it looks like coming out of the bottling bucket. That's flat. No carbonation going on there. A little cloudy, which is standard for your wit beer. I actually expected it to be a lot more cloudy coming straight out because of all the peach puree in there, but it looks pretty standard. It's got a nice nose. I can taste some of the lavender. I think one thing is, though, it's still, at least right now, I think some of these flavors need to settle down because it's still heavy on the orange peel, which is pretty standard for a wit. And I think that the orange peel is kind of overpowering the peach and the lavender a little bit right now. But I think it's going to settle in. And I do get a hint of peach and I do get a hint of lavender. So we'll see how those come together over the next month in the bottle. I'm hoping they come together very well because I'm entering this beer into a competition 1 month from now. So I'm hoping that that gives it enough time to settle. 4 weeks of conditioning the bottle. I prefer 6 to 8 weeks, especially for this beer, but it, you know, I just kind of ran out of time. I started a little late and I kept it in primary and in secondary longer than I had originally planned. So we'll see how it goes. I'll let you guys know. And so now what we're going to do, I'm going to shut up. We're going to go ahead and bottle the beer. Today we're going to be corking it, and so I'll show you how to do that. Except for the bottles that I'm entering into the competition, which I'm just putting in your regular 12-ounce bottles and capping those in the manner that I showed you in the previous video. The rest of it will be put in Belgian bottles with corks and the ties, the wire ties. So we'll show you how to do all that here in just a few minutes. And then that will be it. The other 5 gallons I am going to put on tap because I'm trying to limit the amount of bottling that I do. Bottling to me is kind of a pain. It's so much easier to keg. Once you have the ability to keg and use a kegerator or a portable keg or stick it in your refrigerator, however you want to do, it's so much less time and less work. Bottling, you got to clean all the bottles, and you know, you saw that on the last episode on how much it takes. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys how to cork today, so that's why we're doing this episode. But the other 5 gallons we're gonna put on tap, and hopefully everybody likes it. So, be back in a second with the corks. It's got potential. one quick note that I wanted to show you guys is that, guys and girls, that I've added this extension tube that I did not have on the last time that I did a bottling episode, and that's going to cut down on the oxygenation going into your beer as you bottle, because it's going to put it all the way down to the bottom of your bottle. And you just let it fill up. You want to leave some headspace though. Definitely an inch or so in there. I have a paper towel here on the floor to prevent the drippage from getting all over the floor. But so that's that part of it. So one other quick note here. I don't think you can see this with the lighting in here, but I've got the beer in the bottle about right up to that line there. So I still have about a good inch or so to the top to give you some headroom. Alright, so this is corker capper. Hope you can see that okay on the camera there. Pick these up at your local homebrew shop or online. I think I got mine somewhere between $60 and $70, maybe somewhere like in that range. Anyway, so you will just take your bottle that's been filled with beer. This here is adjustable. So if you've got smaller bottles that you would just want to cap, or whatever size, it can go. You can see that. I don't need to keep explaining. Anyway, just push this down. Pop your cork in there. Line it up on that little metal piece. Make sure your bottle's lined up there in the center. And then just crank it over. Now I'm right-handed, and so I was struggling there a little bit with the left hand to get it centered and done right. This came out a little crooked because of the way I was pushing down on it. But my cork's in there. So, as you're doing this, it's going to take you a few tries to get it right. Do some practice, and don't be discouraged if your cork doesn't look perfectly like the professionals. Because you'll get there as you keep doing these. And then these are the wire caps. These are there's Belgian ones or champagne ones. I think the Belgian ones, or actually the champagne ones, are a little bit bigger than the Belgian wire ones. Either one will work for your bottles. At least that's what I've been told. These are the champagne ones. There is also a tool that you can use. It costs like $5 or $6 to twist your wire. I was being cheap that day. I was at the homebrew shop and did not buy one, and so I'm doing these by hand, but it still works. And so you get that lined up on there, and then you twist it, and then you've got something that looks like that. And there is a corked Witbier with peaches and lavender that we're just waiting to carbonate. And I'm gonna finish these up, then we'll do a wrap up. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up our session for today. I ended up with a case of 12 750 bottles, another 6, and then the 6-pack of the regular 12-ounce bottles. So a pretty good haul out of that 5 gallons. You always lose some when you're, from the trub and stuff that settles to the bottom. I think I lost about it. Maybe somewhere between a quarter and a half gallon by the time it was all said and done. So we got these bottled. We're going to let them carbonate down in a dark, semi-cool place in the basement. Stays 60 to 63 degrees down there most times. So then let them sit down there for the next 2 to 4 weeks before I try one. I might try cracking one in a couple weeks and see how that flavor is coming together. So bottling is always a bit of a chore. It ends up making a nice presentation that you can take to a friend's house. or when friends come over, you can impress them by, especially if you've got a corked ale to serve them. I'm going to put some labels on some of these for the ones that I use for special occasions, and we'll follow up with the label part of it when we do the taste test segment. So don't get discouraged if you run into any problems while you're brewing. I had multiple problems with this brew, as I mentioned previously, with boilovers, wrong measurements, forgetting gravity readings, and you know, I made a bit of a mess here today as I was bottling. One thing I would recommend, well, two things. Keg if you can, because kegging is always much easier. But if you stick with the bottling process, and if you have the room, do it in a garage, shed, outside, because you end up with leaks, drips, whatever. Kind of makes a mess. And so I just finished mopping the dining room, and I think I'm going to have to do it again. But keep brewing, keep trying new recipes. I hope that all of your brews are successful. And in the meantime, relax, don't worry, and have a home brew. And I'll catch you next time on Homebrewers Alley. Thanks for watching.